We're going to call to order this July 1, 2021 meeting of the Richmond Regional Transportation Planning Organization, and this is our executive committee this morning. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to you, Mr. Chairman.
It's very nice to be able to share coffee and actually be in person. We're getting back to normal, aren't we?
Whatever that is.
Yeah, exactly.
The new
We
normal.
remember what normal was, right?
Yeah.
The new normal.
Madam Clerk, do we have a quorum this morning?
Yes, I can certify that we have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Joe. I have any motions to amend the agenda, any additions, deletions? If not, do I have a motion for approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion for approval from John Hodges and a second from Susan Loscolette. Any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
was that the agenda or the minutes?
the minutes. I mean, excuse me, the agenda. I apologize.
Thank you. What I said.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the minutes. We have a motion for approval.
I'm going to approve the minutes.
Second.
Third.
I have a motion from Mrs. Page for approval and a second from whom?
Second.
From Ms. Susan Loscolette. Discussion on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
We will now move to our open comment period. Please come forward. Please give your name, your address. If you are an individual, we will allow you 3 minutes. If you represent an organization, we will provide you with 5 minutes.
Mr. Chair, we have not received any requests to address the committee this morning.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Not seeing anybody come forward, I will close the public comment period. It moves us to the chair's report. Pleased to announce that we're returning to our annual transportation forums this year. You know, last year we couldn't do it because of the pandemic. This year we will be holding it again. We will be holding it on November 4. We will be holding it at the Independence Golf Center in Powhatan County. It's an impressive facility. The people that play golf, like Mr. Peterson, are with it. He knows that's the home of a world-class golf course. So Mr. Gibb Reed has graciously extended the use of that facility for us for our transportation forum. So we're looking forward to having a good agenda and good attendance on that on November 4th. That concludes my report. Mr. Parsons.
Thank you, sir. Just a couple brief updates for the executive committee this morning. The first is I guess a follow-up and a confirmation that the request from December to expand the NPO boundary has been approved. We took action at our last meeting to accept the state's report that they are on board with that expansion and to set the date for that expansion to be October 15th, 2021. And that will, I discussed briefly last month, the long-range plan will be finished by then. We will have all of our ducks in a row, you know, in terms of making sure any reports or data that we typically publish or send out reflects the new boundary. So there is some work that we need to do internally at the staff level to make sure that everything reflects the new boundary. But by the time we get to October, we should have everything in line and ready to go. So nothing else is standing in the way, and that will take place October 15th by action that you took last month. The next item, number 5B, Connect RVA 2045. This is our long range plan that everyone has been working on diligently for the past 18 months. The schedule is tight to get that plan adopted. We do have a number of steps remaining in the process between now and October. We have to have that plan adopted by this agency and back to the feds by October 6th. And right now, we are scheduled to, you should have all received notice that we're going to be moving our October meeting to Monday, the 4th. And hopefully we didn't see any conflicts with anybody's schedule when we checked with local support. And taking action on the plan on October 4th will give us time to make sure everything is in place. Between now and then, we have a number of things happening. Next Wednesday is a special TAC meeting where we'll look to open a public comment period for air quality conformity for our constraint list projects. Starting August 15th, we expect to have the bulk of the plan in a draft form, and August 15th we'll open a 30-day public comment period leading up to the official review by the TAC and the policy board and the advisory committee. And then September 15th we'll be taking all of the public comment that we received and putting that into a final draft for consideration. During that public comment period, that 30 days, we have full intention of taking it out to the public. We would like to do a series of open houses, in-person open houses like we used to do, and also provide virtual options for people to review the plan. One thing we've noted in the last year is that providing that virtual option has really expanded our public engagement abilities. So we don't want to lose sight of that. The other thing we'd like to do, and this is where I'm going to ask you directly, is we would like to have time on the agenda, if possible, of any of the boards of supervisors or councils to give a 5-minute update in terms of what the plan is and how people can attend some of those open houses or get more information. And so I think we'll be reaching out directly to each of you to try and schedule some time in the next couple of months, if possible. This is kind of a last minute request, but we would certainly love to be able to come out and talk individually with each jurisdiction. And then finally, none
Mr. Chairman,
privacy.
Well, then, the question,
Mr.
what time
Peters.
frame do you want to have all these on?
To coming to the board. We would like to do that. We could probably start doing it in early August, if that's possible.
Well, I'm saying that because like in Hanover, we normally have 2 meetings a month. But we only have one in July and August.
Okay.
And I didn't know that may really put a problem for you, is trying to get to everybody. If everybody is doing the same thing we are.
Right. I'll look this still up. I mean, August should be fine, right?
August
I think if we could do August, September, anywhere in that 2-month time frame will be great.
Yeah, we don't have a meetings on this item.
No meetings, okay.
That would be the Connect RDA, Connect RDA 2045, that's the only thing.
Yes. It's really just an information update, so it wouldn't take more than 5 minutes probably,
How many minutes?
unless there are questions.
20 minutes or something.
I was, in terms of us talking, it'd only be 5 minutes, 5 or 10 minutes.
We'll get a little bit more than that.
Thank you.
Any other questions from Mr. Forrest?
Mr. Chairman, on the boundaries, I know we talked about this, and I was trying to remember, did we actually codify this? The change is effective October 15th. Did we say that's when the assessments would change as well? I can't remember exactly how we did that.
That is our okay, I'm gonna ask Martin to maybe address the group.
Sorry, yeah. The assessments that were approved as part of the budget for the planning district commission are based on the pre-boundary expansion. So I think what we will do, given the timing, the new assessments of the whole county, for example, for Bridgeland, will come into effect in fiscal year 2023.
So when you assess the next year, it'll be on the new populations because we'll probably have census numbers at that time
That's
as
right.
well.
Yeah.
If
and
that
so
changes anything.
That's right. Yes, because, and part of this is just because, as you know, the locality requests for the TPO special assessment go in November, December, which was right before the decision to do the boundary expansion, and we
Right.
had no idea when the approval would actually come into
Sure.
place. And so there just will be a, 9-month lag, basically in the effective date of the new assessments, and that'll give us time to get caught up on the census as well.
That's great. I really appreciate it. I just want to be sure we were clear on that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I guess another tidbit of information there, we've already received our prorated estimate of budget for the rural transportation program. So I mentioned that we were hoping that it wouldn't just be cut starting July 1. So we do have limited funds until October 15th.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Oscar.
Okey-doke.
The only other item I had was the forum, and you covered that already. So we'll certainly be providing more information as we get details on that.
Okay, you have selected RRTPO agenda topics. Again, Mr. Parsons.
Thank you very much. Before I go into the agenda for the 9:30 meeting, I did want to note that there are a couple of things happening in terms of meetings this morning. So the policy board meets at 9:30. There is a meeting of the Transit Service Governance Subcommittee for the CBTA at 11. And we're going to make it all work, but I just wanted to let you all know that Nicole and I may be running around frantically in the next hour or two.
So when do you have to be finished?
Mr. Bannon?
When does this have to be finished? Because we could probably move it pretty quickly.
I think the agenda works out, but we would love to be finished by 10:30
Okay.
to allow the nominating committee to go ahead and get together
So I guess
before
it's-
the
no problem.
next one.
Yes.
So looking at the 9:30 agenda, there are a couple of items to bring to your attention, mostly under new business. B1 is the Connect RVA 2045 constrained list of projects. And this is a major milestone in the development of the long range transportation plan. So this has gone through the advisory committee, and it's out for public review. We do know that this is kind of the foundation of finalizing the plan. The constraint list means that these are the projects that have been identified through project scoring and ranking that can be funded by all of the estimated available funds over the next 20 years. And this forms the foundation. And Sulab will give an overview of that. I think one thing to note is that with the existence of the CBTA, it's a game changer. We have the ability to fund almost all of the projects that are desirable and deep regional in nature. So there is still a limited list of what we've called vision projects, which would lie outside of that funding ability. But for the most part, it's a different animal than the last long range plan, where we could only expect to fund a small portion of the needed projects. So
this current list reflects CBTA funding.
it does. Yes, sir. And there's more detail, but yes, the short answer is yes.
Ms. Parsons, let me, I have a question. When you say that we're going to be using CBTA monies to fund projects in long-range transportation plan, we're developing priorities right now at CBTA for, funding of projects. How do we know that they're going to line up with the long-range transportation plan projects?
We don't know yet, and that's a great question. But the assumption is that as we look at, as I've been working with and other staff have been working with the regional priority subcommittee, a lot of the same projects are being discussed in both venues. So we have some
We're
assumptions.
just doing crosstabs and doing assumptions.
We're doing crosstabs and assumptions, and we know we're building in time to make any necessary changes at the last.
I was just curious.
And I think,
Ms. O'Bannon?
I think when we discussed establishing the CBTA, that was why we wanted it to be attached to the TPO. That was pretty much the point of that. Because a lot of the funding is drying up. We all knew that. We weren't getting money from the state. And I was just mentioning to Ms. Page that this new transportation bill at the federal level includes $0 for interstate, highways. So, we're getting stuck with the bill. That was why we developed CPT. That was sort of the idea, was to make sure it was in line with the TPO list. Because we figured we put all our time on the TPO list, you shouldn't duplicate it.
Right.
That was the whole point.
Well, Ms. O'Bannon, I appreciate you bringing that forward because that was my recollection as well. That was the case that was made. I remember time again, I remember Mr. Brown came to us and spoke to us about the creation of the authority. There wasn't money available to fund the projects. And if we use a multiple example, just to fix the widening of 64 something, this page is very concerned about. It would take years to be able to use all the monies. We still wouldn't be able to do it for, I think it was 4 to 5 years or something like that. So thank you for bringing that forward.
Mr. Chairman, I should point out, I think that to maybe ease things for everybody, is if we look at the technical advisory committees, both for this group and for the CBTA, you're gonna find the same people sitting on there. So it's gonna make it a little easier.
Oh, that's good.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I want to hasten to say that in talking to my transportation staff, we were informed that we will receive less money from revenue sharing. And this has been a continuing trend for many years. It's been declining revenue. And I'm just concerned because one of the downsides of having a CDTA is that the state will remove its responsibility for doing what it's responsible for doing. And accordingly, as stated, federal government will remove and push it down always, usually to the local level, which is just unfortunate. With the state now having over $2 billion in a surplus, you can see where we're going. And I was quite disturbed when I heard about the decline in $5 million in matching funds and revenue sharing. And we will match it with $5 million at the county level.
Right.
It's very concerning to me, the trend. And I think we have to be clear and focus that. And I think Ms. Brown needs to know at the CTB very clearly that, we're not telling you to take our funds, then you hold on to yours and then ship them to another game. It's called a shell game,
yes, sir.
which I've seen happen at the state in prior years. Shell games of money is moving here and there and every way. Excuse me for being dramatic. However, that's a concern I have. And what it does, again, reemphasize, it pushes the mandate down to the local level to fund it. So I think we have to let them know that we're just not gonna give up, give in, and give over to them.
Well, Mr. Holland, your comments along with Ms. O'Bannon, y'all are killing it because I have the same concern.
Good.
Because when Mr. Brown came here and announced the creation
Yes.
of an authority in the central Richmond region, he made the statement, he said, this is the new way Virginia's going to fund transportation. Now, what happened to the Byrd Act of 32? Where the state said we were going to assume responsibility. So now you're pushing the raising of taxes for transportation out into the communities to solve a transportation funding project that the state said that they were going to be responsible for back with the Byrd Act of 32. And now to your point is now they're going to cut back from the state because of what we're doing locally. Okay, if you want another outcome, look at your 6-year funds and what you're getting from the state. In Powhatan, we get enough each year maybe to do a driveway.
Depending on how long the driveway is.
A very short driveway.
Yeah.
But the state is not cutting their collections. That's what you're getting.
That's the
That's
problem.
where the
That's the
excess
problem.
money comes
That's
from.
right.
That's right.
So how far do we go? I mean, do we stand up and say this is ridiculous? I mean, this federal government, do we stand up and say, put some money in there for interstates? I mean, then the state would receive the interstate funds and then maybe they'd have more left over, but then are they going to turn it, turn
Right.
around and give it.
Well, at the federal level, I think we need to take a position and send something to our elected representatives now,
We
not
said the
wait,
state.
like express our concerns. So that this is
Start the state.
at least considered in their deliberations and, at the federal level. At the state level, going back to Mr. Holland's suggestion about the state doing their part, just like with education, the state was not doing their fair share, and to Mr. Holland's point, the localities were picking up.
Had to.
We didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
So if we're seeing that happen, as Mr. Holland's pointed out,
Yeah.
with transportation, and them not fully funding transportation, then we need to, put our elected officials again on notice as a body that this is a concern.
Yes,
Y'all's thoughts?
concur. I think we have to let it be known, our thoughts on that, and at the time, it is just so ironic that I will be told, damn, this is happening. The timing of it is just eerie, at least I will wait a little while longer. But nevertheless, the timing is just.
It's called trickery.
It's what it is. So I just don't deal with that kind of, it's tricky. I'm up front, guy.
All right, what do y'all think about I'm sorry,
Let me stop.
Mr. Hodges?
Well, I was just gonna say, should we ask the staff to draft a resolution for consideration by the full policy board with the concern? Not today, possibly, or maybe.
I don't know, we can start today.
I think there's some urgency to this, because they're working right now.
They made the announcement today.
All right,
Well, we can
Let's-
do
let's-
your business.
let's go through the chair, because we're breaking up into conversations around the table.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Parsons.
I would suggest that the TPO can support, this is the forum to support local concerns.
So we were the
Yes,
transportation body that was designated.
my question is revenue sharing is not it's not a regional impact. It doesn't affect the TPO itself, but I think the TPO is a logical place to communicate concerns from each of you. So, staff would be happy to, as Mr. Hodges suggests, work with, I don't know if it would be best to work with Dr. Holland's technical staff to start drafting the letter.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be
And then
glad
we
to
could
accommodate.
join with the CBTA. Obviously that's why they were formed, but I would think they would also be the place to put in, a resolution,
Sure.
letter and all that stuff. And a group of us could go down and talk to people.
Dr. Newman.
Yeah, I would concur with Ms. Avani, certainly both bodies joining, but we had Warner at one of our sessions.
Yes.
It would also, I would think, behoove us to have an in-person conversation as well, to be clear with our electeds as they're going back up.
So what am I hearing? Am I hearing that we need to, when we get to the full policy board meeting, to have this discussion and then come forward with a recommendation from the policy board meeting as to what we would direct staff to do?
Okay, I have another thought.
Yes, Ms. O'Bannon.
Why don't we invite them here?
That's what,
We've done, is that what you were saying?
we
Just
had
invite
Warner
them.
before over
Oh,
at the meeting at Main Street, and so I was in addition to, I'm sorry,
Oh,
wasn't
no,
clear.
I was.
In addition to
Yes.
putting something in writing to extend an invitation for them
We've
to
had the VHDA
join us for the
here, too.
conversation.
So it's an AB.
Yes. it's
But I would
okay.
like to have them here. It's closer.
Okay, so we can do both
It's
things
more
then.
intimate.
We could do
Ms.
that.
O'Bannon, and we can do both things, can't we? Ms. Lascalette.
So the purpose of this resolution, letter, communication, is to influence or at least make our positions known as they work through the transportation bill in Congress. Is that what we're saying?
That's one epistle that'll be going into Washington, and then there's another effort here with the General Assembly and our elected officials. And then there's a third request, and that is bringing them here to actually meet with us for a
Which I
discussion.
like.
And the other thing is working with CBTA as well to get the message out.
So the transportation bill that's in Congress right now, sorry, I don't know where it is, what the status is. Is it imminent that they're gonna be voting on that, or do we know?
I don't think anything's imminent.
We're
It's making
talking
progress.
costs, right?
It's making progress.
Right,
It's going through both sides of the house.
right.
Both-
And the reason I ask is waiting another month, does that matter? That was my only
Yeah.
comment there.
Good question.
That's a good question, and that's why I think, we need to bring it forward to the full policy board the next meeting.
Okay,
So I wouldn't wait, I wouldn't hesitate.
do you need a motion on that, or are we just gonna collectively?
Do we have
agree?
consensus that this will be brought forward at the next meeting for consideration by the full body?
Well, how about coming forward at the meeting today?
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, you
I
said
said
the
the
next
next
meeting. I
meeting.
thought you
I'm
meant the
sorry.
next meeting.
35 minutes.
Sorry.
And the one following this, the
Okay.
policy.
Just wanna make sure.
No, I'm, no,
The
I
way you
wouldn't-
said it though, yeah.
no, I
Absolutely,
wasn't- I
Mr.
wasn't
Chair.
referring to next month.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And when
Dr. Newman.
is the next CBTA meeting? Such that this could be.
What is,
16.
16.
So maybe, so that discussion can be on their table as
Yes,
well, and
ma'am.
we can move in tandem.
Yes, ma'am.
That's excellent thought, yeah.
Yeah, so,
It would be good if CBTA had
yes.
something from the
Oh,
TPO.
yeah.
Good
at
stuff.
that meeting.
Okay,
Okay, so Mr. Parsons, where do you suggest we put this on the agenda for the policy board? For discussion.
I would suggest maybe just throwing that in the chair.
Okay.
Report from the executive committee. This was an action that was requested.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just for a little historical background, I'm just thinking back, and I know you were here, several others. About 6 or 7 years ago, we were unanimous on this board against, I think, the word devolution, where the state was moving
Yes.
everything down to the local level. And since then, we have now formed the CVTA, which is exactly the opposite of everything we were at back at that point in time, which is all about devolution.
Yeah.
Getting them doing money at low, bringing money down to the local level, putting the bills.
I think we gave up.
Good comment. Good
This
comment.
is
Got
just
a lot of
historical-
institutional knowledge
historical
around that.
background.
Good comment, thank you.
I think it came because we had pushed and asked and nothing happened. And I think Mr. Holland's comment was one of the big reasons we did it too. We weren't getting any maintenance money.
Yeah, in fact, now, Mr. Chairman, I might hasten to say also on May 14th, our staff sent a letter to College Brown regarding the delayed funding for revenue sharing. And so there's a letter here that certainly I think we should have Grant Epps, who's written this letter, should share with you all. And in the county is, in the city, who would like the information. So I have a letter here, just getting a copy.
Excellent.
So it's already front and center.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, one last comment. When we bring this to the policy board meeting, do we need to have a vote of the committee to do a letter or whatever was suggested?
Yes.
Okay, and can we do a vote under the chairman's comments?
Earth?
Yes.
There you go. The answer is yes. All right, just that.
Yes.
He said yes.
Okay, you said yes. Okay. Oh, good.
Thank you, Ms. Lasko.
That there are a couple other items under new business. These are all action requested. The second item, B2, is designation of the Richmond urbanized area critical urban freight corridor. And Sarah Rasmus on our staff will provide that update. This is really putting the TPS stamp on something that there really isn't a whole lot of choice on, but it's really looking at sections of our major transportation corridors, including 295 and 64, I believe, to be designated through the Office of Intermodal Planning and Investment as a critical urban freight corridor. So that's on the agenda. B3 is a TIP amendment, BDOT request, and Mr. Bushing will present that. And then B4 is the draft regional project selection and allocation framework. Again, by Mr. Bushing. And this is the action requested on revising the RSVPC Met guidelines. And that is all in the new business. That's the review of the agenda items for 9:30.
I meant to, under the chairman's report at the beginning of the meeting, to bring up the fact that Richmond City Council recently extended the, before I get into it, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Newbill to explain what action was taken. And then I'm going to ask Chet and ask Mr. Gregory to comment on how it does or does not affect us.
Sure.
Dr. Newbill?
As all of us anticipated the governor lifting moratorium at the end of June, what we did in Richmond was to look at our readiness for our facility in terms of public safety. And so we determined that we would not be ready by July 1 to have in place the measures necessary to provide safety consistent with CDC guidelines even before the Delta variant appeared. And so we passed legislation that would allow us to continue to hold virtual meetings through December of this year, which would allow us then the opportunity to ready our chambers in terms of, and it's not just the chambers, it's how folks would enter the building. So you can't have crowds in the elevators. So looking at the escalators, entry, exit, looking at social distancing within the chambers itself, which cuts down on the number of persons, looking at and ordering sneeze guards, making all of that in place. So for us, we could not get all of the components ordered and in place by a July 1 date. Plus, we only meet once in July. We don't meet at all in August. So for us to then go on and schedule a September 1 date is when we're planning to open in person. And we will have all of those safety measures in place as best as any of us can safeguard both staff and the public in the context of this pandemic. The continuity of government legislation does extend itself to other entities that fall under public bodies operating in Richmond. However, it does not require it. Entities can make their own decisions about when they would like to reopen, safeguarding, et cetera. But we wanted to err on the side of caution. Plus, we couldn't get all of the things ordered in place by July 1 that we wanted in the chambers, with staff, with council members, et cetera. So right now we are scheduled to open September 1st and plan to have all safety measures in place as best we can, consistent with the CDC guidelines. But other bodies do have the option to fall under Richmond, but that is their decision and it is not required.
Thank you, Dr. Newbill. And Chet, do you have anything that you need to add to that?
I'm not sure I need to add much more. It is of note that all of the agencies that we represent, Plan RVA, RRTPO, CBTA, reside in this building. And this building is within city limits. So the city's extension of the deadline just adds extra flexibility so that if the desire of the option is there for any or all of the organizations to continue to provide virtual options to participate. As a staff, we intend to continue live streaming all of our meetings to YouTube. That's different than the virtual back and forth that we were doing through Zoom. But I would fully recommend continuing that practice indefinitely, the live streaming, so that we have a public record, we have video of all of our meetings in case people want to go back and watch.
Well, the FOIA people put out some information and their indication was that you didn't have to have the members say around the table, the people who are participating in voting, but they said they like the idea, of course, that you would do not just video streaming, but you could have the interaction with the public. In other words, public comment period, they might be on, we could see them on the screen or something. That was their recommendation.
Yes, and I believe Ms. Heater has something to
Is
say,
that-
but
Is that
The
what
option-
you meant when you said that?
the
But
option
you were
is there
saying
that we can
just
continue.
stream, meaning
No,
you can
I-
watch it, but
I'm-
interactive.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to confuse anything. The option is there to do exactly what you're
To be
saying
interactive with the public
through December.
through December. Oh, well, they met forever. In other words, our board is doing that with WebEx. And we have the process where if anyone wants to speak during the public comment period, they can sign up either for being on WebEx or if they're in the room, or if they walk in the room, anything like that. And we intend to keep doing that. But that's just public participation part, with interaction, not for vote taking and a quorum in the room and that sort of thing. And that's what you're talking about. You
That's
will
correct.
allow the quorum to be
That's correct,
Somebody-
fully virtual.
fully virtual.
That's correct. And we will, like I said, come back in person.
But that's only for September.
Right, we plan to open at the beginning of September.
I'm gonna ask Mr. Gregory, to opine on this as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the body. I have reviewed the City of Richmond ordinance that Dr. Newell referenced. I agree with everything she said and everything Chet said. It does affect or apply to Plan RVA and all the other agencies, including the TPO that are housed here, and any other public body within the boundaries of the City of Richmond. So it does provide that option to meet virtually, but it doesn't require it, as Dr. Newell stated clearly. So you have that option, or either as a full body or individual members could participate via electronic communications means if the need arose through the end of the calendar year, through December. I think is it December 1st or end of December? Anyway, it's December. I think.
Yes,
At the end
December.
of-
No,
the end of
we'll
the calendar
open
year.
September work. We'll open September 1st. The legislation goes through December.
Right. So you
Yeah.
have that option through the end of the year. Now, that's for the meeting of the body itself. It doesn't necessarily, there's a distinction between that you need to be sensitive to that is about the distinction between the public body meeting versus public participation. You can always, as the FOIA, as Ms. O'Bannon mentioned, the FOIA council would encourage you to do, to live stream the meetings via YouTube and or allow the public participation via Zoom, because the YouTube thing is sort of a static, non-interactive platform, right? Whereas Zoom is a dynamic, interactive platform that would allow citizens to provide public comment or participate in public comment interactively. So that you can decide what you want to do, but neither of those options are mandated or required either, but you can do that.
So, Ms.
I'd just like to ask another question related to what we do relative to the city's ordinances. Governor's lifted his emergency. Hanover has lifted our emergency order, which essentially puts us back to pre-COVID situation. So our folks in Hanover are under different regulations than the folks in the city now. So how does that apply? For instance, Joe Fidenza is back here on our tax. Can he participate virtually when in Hanover County he cannot?
Yeah. Because
Because the meeting is.
because the body is within the city of Richmond.
Okay, that's what
So he
I'm trying to
can-
clarify.
it doesn't
whether
matter
there's a restriction because of where he's from.
No.
Yeah, it doesn't matter from whence the person participates or from where the person participates. It's the meeting of the public body, which is in the city of Richmond. That's where the nexus of the rule is, right? So that would be.
But my understanding that that the subcommittees want to participate virtually. Is that correct?
Yes.
We heard anything from them.
Yes, thank you. And yeah, two points regarding that. We have heard loud and clear that the TAC, especially because of the efficiencies of travel, would prefer to continue meeting virtually, the members as long as possible. Because honestly, it allows them to add more local work in on a daily basis without driving here for meeting and back. And I think that the CTAC would like to do that as well. I do have some concerns about staff time and it would be great if we had a standard direction moving forward so that one subcommittee isn't operating totally different than a different subcommittee in terms of setting up Zoom and sharing links and agendas and all the work that has to go into setting up a meeting. And if we're allowing different types of participation and location, then we need to make sure that that's standardized.
Well, hold that thought, okay, because where I see us right now is that we've got the issue going forward of a public participation on one side, you know, whether people would be able to continue to receive our meetings live stream and be able to comment remotely. That's one issue. And I think we all want that. Okay. I'll hold that for the body to make that decision. Second thing is whether we want to be here around the table meeting as a policy board. Okay. Now, Mr. Gregory was telling me before the meeting that you still have the option as individual members, whether you want to attend or you want to virtually attend the meetings. Is that correct, Mr. Gregory?
Well, that's mostly correct. The provision of FOIA 2.23708.2 allows, regardless of the pandemic or any declaration of a local emergency or any special provisions such as are included or were enacted by the City of Richmond's ordinance, that section standing alone would allow members of a public body to meet or participate in a meeting of a public body via electronic communications means for for that, which you do. So that is permissible on a sort of ad hoc basis, but there's limitations. I believe members of the public body can only do that a couple of times a year. Can't do it as just standard operating procedure. So it's limited. There is the capacity to do that, but it is somewhat limited. Whereas under the City of Richmond ordinance, you can do it. Everybody can do it.
Okay, that takes us to the third thing, and that is Mr. Parsons' concern about uniformity among the subcommittees in terms of how they meet. So if I understand it, Mr. Parsons, you're saying that it takes an inordinate amount of staff time to set up differently for, subcommittees that are either meeting remotely, virtually, or whether they're coming in. And what are you looking for from this body?
Well, I'm thinking, changing my opinion as we sit here. It sounds like,
Fair enough.
from what Mr. Gregory is saying, if it's the choice of the policy board, we don't need to lose, we can have Zoom links for every meeting we have so that the public can participate. If that's the case, then it's just a procedural decision of the body to say whether TAC members can participate virtually. The mechanism doesn't change. We would, if we always have a Zoom link available for the public, we can use the same thing for members.
But come December, the TAC members would not be able to vote. If they were convert to being virtual, they'd have to be in person. Once that's lifted.
When the City of Richmond ordinance, assuming it goes or it is no longer in effect after December 2021. I mean, it could be theoretically, it could be extended or changed,
that's what I'm saying.
or it could be repealed prior to that date. So depending on, but if things proceed as we understand them now, so that ordinance is in effect through the end of the calendar year, yes, they can participate electronically via Zoom or some other online streaming platform.
Till then, but once the city lifts their ordinance, then they have to be here in person to actually vote.
That's correct.
Unless they would go through that.
Hold that thought, Mr. Pearson, just for a second. Martha, you want to comment? Jump in.
Thank you. I just, on the public comment portion, I think I wanted to just offer perhaps some additional information as part of the discussion. it is our understanding that I think the general consensus is that the benefits for members of the public to be able to observe the meeting in live remote fashion has been a good thing. And so as Mr. Parsons indicated, we believe that it is a good idea to continue the live stream to YouTube. We also believe that it is a good idea to create a new mechanism for members of the public to interact virtually with you during the public comment period.
Yes.
As you know, right now, the opportunity for the public to comment is through basically like a reservation. They have to have submitted their comments the day before the meeting. They cannot virtually walk up to the podium and convey their comments in live fashion. I think what we would like to do from the staff perspective is enable that mechanism to occur, which would mean, as Mr. Parson was saying, I think the evolving thought during this conversation of the Zoom capability will become a regular part of our meeting setup and logistical preparation. But the Zoom access beyond the emergency would really only exist for purposes of the public interacting with you via kind of a remote situation. I think that that's a really critical piece for us to enable with your permission as quickly as possible, because as you can see, our gallery is not very large, and there are still recommendations in place that unvaccinated persons wear masks. We do not have a mechanism essentially to enforce that. And so we are, operating on the honor system as a community. And we do not have adequate space physically for people to distance the way that they are being advised to do. Should we happen to have an issue where 25 members of the public wanted to come to address you, this space is not adequate for that. And so I think that virtual component is really kind of critical. And so I think one dimension of this that would be helpful is if the policy board and executive committee are in support, I think we would want to strongly encourage members of the public who do want to interact with you to do that virtually during this time of uncertainty about the pandemic.
Yes, Mr. Peterson.
If I could, I'd like to add to that. I don't think that needs to be limited to the pandemic at this time.
That's right.
helpful.
That's right. I think it needs to be the way we
But I think
function.
that a key element is whether we put out the Zoom access to the whole world, or we ask people to sign up who want to speak. I think, I think asking, if you want to speak to the board, asking for the access code versus a universal access code that goes out to the whole world could be a problem.
And we can certainly set up, if that's I think that those are the things we want to understand from you. We have the capability to set up a registration system if that's your desire.
Well, that's what we do in Rico.
I mean, you
That's
do
what I
that
said.
if you can't, whether you're in person or you sign up to speak.
Yeah. But I love the idea of being able to.
Let's go back on through the chair, because we're breaking up into individual conversations again. And we're running out of time here in the executive committee meeting. Martha, what I'm going to do is call on you under chairman's report to bring this together. Council and you.
We have a recommendation.
With a recommendation addressing the three things we've talked about, okay? I'm going to ask you to bring that forward to the full policy board. Again, bringing in the comments that you've heard from Dr. Newville, from Mr. Parsons, and from Mr. Gregory,
Understood.
and the other members, here at the executive committee, such that the full policy board is aware of those three issues and a recommendation from you to the body, okay?
I will collect my notes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I briefly say,
Yes,
also
Mr.
provide online comments for the good of the order as well.
Yeah.
Free online comments.
I think there's unanimity that we want, participation from the public virtually.
Yes.
Okay.
But anyway,
And going back, and I'm gonna make a brief comment here. The desire of the TAC committee wanting to meet virtually, it's more efficient. Folks, we might as well, face it, we've got a paradigm change. that got cemented by the pandemic.
Mhm.
People are not going into meetings. They're enjoying doing Zoom meetings, not having to travel. So it's been a change, and that's something we're gonna have to consider as we go forward as a body. All right, what have we got? Other business, excuse me. Okay. Other business, future topics for our meetings, and pretty standard. Anybody have any suggestions for things that they would like to see covered in any future meetings? Okay, we'll go to member comments. All right, our next meeting is August 5th, 2021, and with that, I'm going to adjourn the executive committee meeting.